The water in your sink is not going down. You ran it to wash up the supper dishes, and now it is just sitting there, a gray pool of greasy water creeping up toward the rim, draining away so slow you could watch grass grow in the time it takes. And the thought that comes next is the one that costs people the most. I had better call the plumber. And the plumber comes, and he is there 20 minutes. And he hands you a bill that would feed a family for a week. Put the telephone down, because 9 times out of 10, a slow or stopped kitchen drain is a thing you can clear yourself in a few minutes with 2 things already sitting in your kitchen that together cost you about $1. No plumber, no harsh chemical poison poured down your pipes. Just hot water, baking soda, and vinegar, and a little understanding of what is actually happening down in that drain. I am Elias. My family has farmed and kept up this Lancaster County ground for generations. And on a farm, you learn to fix your own troubles because there is no calling a man out every time something stops working. You fix it or it stays broke. So today, I'm going to show you the old, plain, cheap way to clear a kitchen drain, why it works, and how to keep it from clogging again in the first place. Let me tell you where I got the habit of fixing my own troubles, because it is the whole spirit of this. When I was a boy, a pipe under our kitchen sink clogged solid one winter evening. The water backed up gray and stinking, and I asked my father, wide-eyed, was he going to send for someone? He looked at me like I had asked him to send for the president. Son, he said, there is no one to send for, and if there were, why would I pay a stranger to do a thing I have 2 hands and a head to do myself? And he got down on the floor under that sink, and he showed me by lamplight exactly what I am about to show you, and we had it running clear before bed. I never forgot the lesson, and it was bigger than the drain. It was that a man who can fix his own troubles is a free man beholden to no one, and a man who must call and pay for every little thing is forever at the mercy of other people's time and other people's prices. That drain was my first lesson in it. So when I show you this, understand I'm not just showing you a trick with vinegar. I'm handing you a little piece of that freedom my father handed me. Let me start by telling you what is actually wrong down there. Because once you understand it, the fix makes plain sense. Your kitchen drain did not stop all at once. It has been closing up slow for months, maybe years. Every time you wash a greasy pan, a little fat goes down warm and liquid, and then it cools in the pipe and turns to a waxy grease, and it sticks to the walls of the pipe. And bits of food and soap, scum, and all the rest catch on that grease. And it builds and builds, layer on layer, narrowing the pipe like fat narrows a man's arteries, until one day the opening is so small that the water cannot get through and you have a clog. Now here is why the plunger, the first thing most folks reach for, often does not truly fix it. A plunger pushes and pulls with pressure, and it may shift a blockage enough to get the water moving again for a day or 2, but it does nothing about that coating of hardened grease lining the whole pipe. The grease is still there, still narrow, and it closes right back up. To truly clear it, you do not want to push at it. You want to melt it and break it loose and wash it away. And that is exactly what these 3 simple things do, each with its own job. The heat melts the grease, the fizzing reaction breaks it loose from the pipe, and the flush of water carries it away. Heat, reaction, and flush. 3 plain forces doing what brute pressure on a plunger never can, because they treat the true cause, the grease coating, and not just the symptom, the water that will not pass. That is the whole difference, and it is why this works where a plunger only puts the trouble off a day or 2. So let me walk you through it step by step. And it could not be simpler. The first step is a pot of boiling water. Put a good pot or kettle of water on to boil, a couple of quarts, and when it is boiling hard, pour it straight down the drain, slow and steady, the whole pot. Now, think on what that does. That hardened grease in the pipe, the grease that is choking it, is just cooled fat, and fat melts with heat. So the boiling water goes down and softens and melts that grease coating, loosening its grip on the pipe walls and washing some of it away on its own. Often, with a drain that is only just starting to slow, the boiling water alone will open it back up. So that is always where you start, and sometimes where you finish. One small caution on the boiling water, and it is worth knowing. If your drain pipes are the old metal kind or sound sturdy plastic, boiling water does them no harm at all and only good. But some of the cheapest, thinnest plastic pipework, or an older pipe joined with that white plastic, and a slip joint can be softened by water at a full, hard boil poured straight on it. If you have any doubt about what your pipes are, use water that is very hot, but just off the boil rather than rolling, and it will do near the same work with no risk to the pipe. For most every house, this is no concern at all, but I would not be doing right by you if I did not mention it, for I would rather you be careful than sorry. But for a real clog, the boiling water alone will not do it. So, on to the second step. And this is where the cleverness comes in. Once the boiling water has run through, you pour 1 cup of plain baking soda directly down the drain. just a cup of dry baking soda sent down the hole, and you let it sit there down in the drain for 5 or 10 minutes, settling into that wet, just softened grease. The baking soda on its own is a mild scouring thing and a thing that cuts grease and kills odor. And letting it sit lets it work down into the gunk. But the baking soda is really there to set up the next step, which is the one that does the heavy work, the third step. After the baking soda has sat its 5 or 10 minutes, you pour 1 cup of plain white vinegar down the drain after it. And now you stand back, because something is going to happen that you will remember from when you were a child. The vinegar meets the baking soda, and the two of them react together in a great fizzing, foaming, bubbling rush. The very same volcano you made in a jar in school. That foaming is not just for show. That bubbling reaction goes to work right there inside the clog, fizzing and foaming up into all the gunk and grease, breaking it apart, lifting it loose from the walls of the pipe where boiling water alone could not reach. The foam scrubs the pipe from the inside by its very fizzing. You may want to put a stopper or a rag loosely over the drain to hold that foaming action down in the pipe where the work is, rather than letting it all bubble up into the sink. And then you let it sit and do its work another 5 or 10 minutes while that reaction eats away at the blockage. Let me say a plain word on why these two humble things from the pantry do the work, for it is no accident and no magic. The baking soda is a gentle, mild, scouring sort of powder. The kind of thing that has cleaned and cut grease and freshened in kitchens for as long as there have been kitchens. Mild enough you bake bread with it, yet able to lift grease and kill a sour smell. The vinegar is a mild acid, gentle enough to put on your supper, yet sharp enough to cut and dissolve. And when you bring the two together, the powder and the acid, they react against each other in that great rush of foam. And it is that very foaming, those countless little bubbles forcing their way up through the clog that does the scrubbing down inside the pipe where no brush could ever reach. Two things, so mild you eat them both doing together what a jug of caustic poison does, and doing it without harming your pipes, or your hands, or your health. That is the beauty of the old plain remedies. They were never harsh, because harsh was dangerous and dear, and the old people had neither danger nor money to spare. They found the gentle way that worked, and it has worked 100 years and works yet. The fourth step is a second pot of boiling water. Once the fizzing has done its work and had its time, you boil up another pot and pour it down hot and fast to flush away everything. The reaction just broke loose to carry all that loosened grease and gunk on down and out of the pipe for good. In the fifth and last step, you run the hot tap water good and hot for a few minutes, a steady flush to make sure the whole drain is clear and running free and everything is washed well away down the line. Run it long enough to be sure, 3 or 4 good minutes. For sometimes, a clog that seems cleared has only loosened, and a long steady flush of hot water carries the last of it the rest of the way out, and proves the pipe is truly open rather than leaving a half-loosened lump to settle and harden again the moment the water stops. And there it is. You should have a drain running clear and quick again the way it ought to, and it cost you $1.10 instead of a plumber's bill. Now what if you run all 5 steps, and the water still goes down slow? Do not lose heart, and do not yet reach for the telephone. The first thing to try is simply to do the whole business a second time. For a bad long-built clog sometimes wants 2 rounds of it, the first to break the worst loose, and the second to clear what is left. Often the second pass does what the first could not quite finish. If after 2 good tries it is still slow, then the trouble may be a thing the foam cannot dissolve, a solid object lodged in there or plugged deeper down the line. And for that, you would want a drain snake, a long flexible wire you feed down the pipe to catch and pull or break the blockage loose, which any hardware store sells cheap, and which is a fine thing to own. And only if all of that fails would I say it is time to call a man out. For then, you likely have a true blockage deep in the main line that wants his tools and his know-how. But you will be surprised how seldom it comes to that. Most every kitchen clog is grease, and most every grease clog yields to the dollar method if you give it a round or 2. Now, let me be straight with you about what this does and does not do, because I will not oversell you and have you disappointed. This method is made for grease and gunk and the slow buildup that closes a pipe over time. And for that, it works wonderfully. What it will not do is clear a solid object, a thing dropped down the drain, or a hard plug of something stuck fast, nor will it reach a blockage deep down in the main line far past the sink. Now for those, you may need a drain snake to reach in and pull or break the thing loose. Or for a true deep blockage, you may yet need the plumber after all. But for the everyday slow grease clog, which is far and away the most common kind, this is your answer. And it is the same one I would try first every time before ever reaching for anything else. And one word of caution, an important one. Do not do this. Do not pour vinegar or boiling water down if you have just poured one of those harsh store-bought chemical drain cleaners down there. Those caustic chemicals sitting in your pipe can react and splash back, and that is dangerous to your skin and eyes. If someone has already put one of those down and it did not work, Let it clear and flush along with plain water first. Better yet, my counsel is to never use those caustic poisons at all. They are hard on your pipes, hard on you, dear to buy, and this plain dollar method does the everyday job without any of that danger. Keep the poison out of your house entirely. Now, let me say a word about who profits from your not knowing how simple this is. Not to rile you up, just so you see the shape of it. There's a plumber's bill and a clogged drain, a good fat one, for a thing that often takes him no more than the few minutes it would take you. And there is a whole shelf at the store of caustic chemical drain openers sold dear in heavy plastic jugs with warnings all over them for a job. $1 of baking soda and vinegar does without the poison. I am not telling you a plumber is a crook. A man must be paid for his work, and a real bad blockage is worth his call. But the everyday grease clog, the most common trouble there is, was never beyond you, and a great deal of money is made on folks believing it was. I'm not telling you a man schemed this. No one had to. It is worse than a conspiracy because it is a system nobody had to coordinate. It simply pays better to sell a clogged drain, a service call, and a jug of poison than to teach a body that hot water and 2 things from the pantry clear it for $1. The old people cleared their own drains because there was no one to call and nothing to buy. So there is the whole of it, a pot of boiling water to melt the grease, a cup of baking soda down the drain. Let it sit, a cup of vinegar after it, and let that great fizzing foam break the clog loose. A second pot of boiling water to flush it away, and a good run of hot tap water to finish. 5 plain steps, $1, 10 minutes, and no plumber. And before I go, let me give you the thing that matters most of all, which is keeping it from clogging in the first place. For an ounce of prevention, here, saves you the whole trouble. The clog is grease, near always grease. So the great rule is this: never pour grease down your drain. When you have fat or grease or bacon drippings left in a pan, do not wash it down the sink warm where it will cool and harden in your pipe. Pour it off into an old tin can kept by the stove for the purpose. Let it harden there and throw it out with the trash, or save the good drippings for cooking as the old people always did, wasting nothing. Wipe a greasy pan with a bit of paper or an old rag before you wash it to take up the worst of the fat. And mind what else goes down that drain besides grease, for plenty of other things build a clog. Coffee grounds are a bad one. Folks rinse the pot and send the grounds down, and they collect and pack down in the pipe like wet sand. Eggshells the same. Starchy things, potato peelings, rice, the skins and pulp of vegetables, bits of dough. All of these swell and gather and catch on any grease already there. The plain rule is, the drain is for water, not for scraps. Scrape your plates and your pans into the slop bucket for the hogs, or the compost or the bin before ever they reach the sink. The way the old people never wasted a scrap, nor sent it where it would do harm. A little screen or strainer set in the drain hole, a few cents at the hardware, catches what does slip toward it, the stray bits and the food, and you simply empty it into the bin. That little screen alone will prevent half the clogs a kitchen ever sees. And keep up the monthly habit I spoke of, for it is the heart of prevention. Once a month, with nothing wrong at all, boil a pot of water and send it down each drain. And, if you like, follow it with the baking soda and vinegar treatment done gently, not to clear a clog, but to keep one from ever forming, melting away the little grease that has begun to gather before it can build into trouble. It takes 10 minutes a month, and it saves you the gray pool of water and the whole business of clearing a true clog. The old way was always to tend to things steady and small, rather than let it go to ruin and then fight to mend it. A drain kept up never clogs. A drain neglected always does, in the end. A house is a thing you keep up with your own 2 hands. The small troubles and the large. And everyone you learn to mend yourself is a bit of money kept in your pocket and a bit of worry lifted from your mind. The old people could call no one, so they learned to fix near everything. And there was a quiet dignity in that self-reliance that I think we have lost and would do well to find again. The house that is kept up by the hands that live in it is the house that runs clear and free. The people who built this country with their hands knew that.